So welcome to the next video in the BICOMmultisoft training. In this video we'll be looking at administrating patients' data. So there'll be a number of things that we're going to cover on how to create a patient and how to work with that data. So we'll go into the pilot software once again, and as we can see, when it opens up, everything's working correctly. So through the course of these training videos we'll be working offline because there's no need to have it connected to a device. So you'll see up here that device is not connected, but it's not running in demo mode because we have the USB license dongle in the side of the computer. So everything that you see in here, apart from the red warning up here, is exactly what you will see. Now up here we have the navigation, we have the patient tab, we have the therapy tab, we have the electroacupuncture tab, we have the combined test technique, we have the digitizer, and we have extras. Again, as I mentioned in the first video, ignore the service tab that won't be shown on your software. So you can actually also see the same tabs on the left pane here, and this is standard layout to have options at the top and at the bottom. But if you're running on a smaller computer with a less of a good screen resolution to the one that we've got here, this can be changed. We go up here to extras, and here you can see that sidebar and ribbon are both highlighted. So if we wanted to disable the sidebar, we just untick that and you'll see that the sidebar disappears. This will give you more room working on a smaller computer. But for the purpose of this demonstration, we'll have both the sidebar and the ribbon. So if you see me through the course of this clicking on different links, don't be confused, they are exactly the same. So we're looking at the patient tab during this demonstration, so that's where we'll go now. One common mistake we see people do is, because this screen here shows an area where you can put surname, first name and so on, they start to put the data in here only to realize that it can't be saved. To create a new patient, you have to go to new patient. If we click on open patient here, you'll see that we brought in quite a lot of data from our old system, but we'll go to new patient, and for this we're going to type test, and the first name can be training. We can put a title, Mr. or Mrs. We can put male or female, and we've put the date of birth, which needs to be in this format: date, month, the /, which is normally on the bottom right hand side of your keyboard just above the control button, and then we have to put a 4-digit date format. It's good practice to fill in these other areas if they've got insurance, the street and their communication details, but in order to be able to create a record, all you need is the surname, first name and date of birth. Then we click OK, and if it's been successful, in this grey bar here we will always see the name of the patient. The only time the process that we've just gone through changes is if you've purchased the Multisoft test program, because in the Multisoft test program you create the patient data in that software and then it links in this one. So then you have to select, there'll be another tab here saying open Multisoft test patient, but that's not needed to be discussed here. So if you have got the Multisoft test, then you will need to look at the Multisoft test training video, which refines this part of the program. After creating a patient, you shouldn't get any warning messages that come up, but there is a useful feature that if you'd started running a therapy and selecting therapy programs, and then halfway through you realise that you'd not opened the patient, there is a feature where you can put the current therapies into the patient data once you've launched the patient, and I will simulate doing that for you now. So I've closed the program and gone back in, and I've not opened a patient, so you'll see that there's no patient listed here, just master data. Then, assuming that I've gone and selected a number of programs and a number of substance complexes all ready to run on a patient, I've started and I've run a few programs. Then I've realised that I've not opened the patient, and I want to assign these to the patient I'm working with. So if you go back to patient and then open patient, and we'll put our training, and we'll look for our patient by going test in the search field, and there's the one that we're working with, test and training. I'll highlight that and press OK, and here it now says the selected therapies have not been allocated to a patient. Do you want to allocate these therapies to this patient? And I'll say yes. You will see here that training test is selected. If I go to therapy, that patient now is being allocated to these programs. Now this is important because if, for instance, you go back, this patient returns a few days or a week later, these will be stored on their record, and let me show you that now. So if you remember some of these, you've got basic programs, you've got allergy prep, and you've got detoxification. If I go to patient, open patient, and pick another test, so I'll go to test again and I'll pick a different test, it loads all the therapies that I ran on that test patient. But then let's go back to our original patient and open. You'll now see that the programs that we've just run are all listed here, but also it shows that we didn't run them for the length of time that they should have been, because the times are all the same. But being able to store the therapy programs for your patients, what date you ran them and the time, and whether the channel 2 was running, is incredibly valuable. It could be that they come back the following week and said that they felt really good after the therapy, so that you know some of these programs have done them an advantage. So you may want to run those programs again. Conversely, they may say that they didn't feel good, so you could analyse the programs that you were running and think, well, maybe I need to run the detoxification one again. But with this sort of information, you can make an informed choice on the type of therapy that you'll continue to run on the second session. So now you can see also that there are a number of symbols next to each one of the programs. So the little, what looks like a little clock, if you click on that, it will then put the actual programs that were run, the parameters for that program. And this one also, I ran an ampule from the CTT test kits, and it actually puts what ampule you used from the CTT, which is really, really effective. These square boxes just indicate that there was a start to a sequence of programs, and the others with the clock next to it, on all of these give the parameters for those programs. So again, that's very useful. You can put comments while on that particular program. So sometimes somebody who's quite sensitive to frequencies may say, oh, I can feel that program. So you could mention here in the notes that felt the effects of the therapy during this program, and that's quite useful to have as notes, and also when they come to see you again, you can go through this list and it shows that you're showing real care about the patient when you're able to recall such information. These program listings here have another use as well, and that's where you can use the invoicing function. So if we click on invoicing, these are all the things that we could include on the invoice. Now you might decide that you don't want to include some of them. You can see actually the duration was very small, or if you were just testing a program, those would also be on here, so you can just delete them. So on this one here, the lymph activation that we didn't run, we can just delete that by clicking here, delete highlighted lines from the system. Do you really want to delete the highlighted lines? Yes. When we're running therapies, we can end up with a long list of things in here because we were just testing whether the program was needed. It might be that we just want to include these here, and then we can invoice the highlighted lines. If for some reason you're not able to do those things I've just mentioned, go to extras, pilot options, and here make sure that these are ticked, or you can make changes here as well if you want to stop results showing on there that were just therapies that you were testing. So you can say if it's run for longer than 30 seconds, then it's assumed that you actually ran that program and weren't testing. Some exceptions to that could be the 170 or the 171, where you may have tested for slightly longer than 30 seconds, but 30, because that can go on for 30 minutes, can't it? Again, only invoice therapies that are longer than 30 seconds, only invoice tests that were longer than 2 seconds. So you've got some parameters that you can use there yourself. So to be able to use the information that we've just selected here, either invoicing the highlighted areas or deleting them, we can go up to the section here which is print or page preview. So to see what the various options are, let's have a look at page preview. So if we go to all, it brings up here the report for all of those programs in that list. If we go to next page, it shows the next therapies and so on, right the way through to page 5. So there's a lot of information there. So we can go to the ones that we've just selected, which is those 3 programs: renal function, scar interference and geopathy balance. So we'll go to that one and we can see there's just the 3 programs here. But it's very useful because it's actually got the protocols here that we used and the setup. So if you change the frequencies or the amplification, again these would be listed. And finally, the other option is not yet invoiced. So unless you mark them as being invoiced, they will always show up on the invoice. So we'll go to close, and also you can also put this information onto your own document. So if you go to export here, and we will look for our patient. So we will look for our patient, which is here, and then we'll look to where we want to export it to, and in this case I'll put it on the desktop just so that we can find it again, and we'll call it something So here we've created the folder called test, and we can have different options here. And then we click export. So we've exported the data, we've clicked export, and we've clicked comma, and we've saved the file we've exported to our desktop. So to do that, we're going to go to Excel, and we're going to create a new workbook. And if you go to data and then get data here on the far left, we want to select the one from file from text. Select that, and then navigate to desktop and to your test file, and then click import. A preview will be loaded, and if we click load now, you will see that all the information looks very smart here, and this can be edited as needed. Items can be deleted, and if you set this up as a template, so you opened a template and imported, you could create your invoice on a nicely letter-headed Excel document, and you can delete various columns as needed, and of course, as we can see here, that if you'd filled in the address of your client, all this information would be loaded up here. So you would need to delete some of these columns if you were going to put them onto an A4 document, and as you can see, some of them are not needed and some of them are repeated. So that's a really neat way. If you're using the latest versions of Excel, you can even click on here and select different colors. So this is a really nice feature to be able to export your invoices and the reports onto a different document. So we'll close that, we'll go don't save in this instance. So once again, that's a really nice feature. So just a little bit of a recap. If we go back to therapy, we can see that we've still got our patient opened. If we go to the patient file, master data, their information is here, and we can add information later on. We can put notes, and we can then save the patient data, and it will always be recalled. If you're in Europe, then GDPR rules really mean that you've got to protect this data, so that's why it's good to have a password on your computer and on the Pilot software. Also, if you're certainly in England, if you've got if you're insured, which I hope you are, for public liability insurance, then you need to be able to make notes of the programs that you ran, advice that you gave, and anything that you gave to the patient to take away. Well, these can be all put in the notes section here, so that you've always got a record. It just means that if anybody ever decided to make a claim against you, say that you made them feel ill or something, you've got a record to be able to just print out and give to the insurance company. But that's never happened that we know of, but it's always good to protect yourself as well. So that's basically it. If you need to open a patient, you click open. To create a new patient, you click here and save, and all that is just the same. This area is just the same, unless you're using the Multisoft test software, where it's a little bit different. So that concludes this session of training. The next one will be selecting programs by indication and moving them from the therapy list into the programs that we're going to run. So we'll catch you next time.